So Ad, thank you for agreeing to talk to us. As we've been saying, the purpose of this conversation is to support our students to gain a better understanding of serious mental ill health, what that's like from the inside, and to use that to support their development in their training.
Yeah.
Can I start then by asking you a bit about your earlier experiences, the development of your psychosis, and the impact that had for you and those around you?
Well, I was doing well at school. I was playing basketball, tennis, playing Spanish guitar and grade 5 piano. I was doing, as I say, I got A to C GCSEs. I had an A-levels in biology, physics and French.
Okay.
Went to Canada and effectively threw it all away.
Early on, academically, pretty strong,
Yeah.
Socially,
Yeah,
all of
steady
that's
girlfriend,
fine.
all that kind of thing.
Okay.
But then, because I wanted to go to Canada, like I let my hair down before, a psychology degree, actually, a deferred entry place, I wanted to see what getting stoned was about. And in Canada also, so I was this English dude with who liked to get stoned a lot, and that opened loads of doors socially. So I'd be working in hotels and things, but with the workers, the other workers at my age, snowboarders and that, they would love getting stoned. So after a year abroad in a wonderful place like Canada, I came back to England on a psychology course, didn't even have an A-level in it, with a diluted personality, because I'd been so used to being the English dude who was a stoner. Back in London, everyone was English.
So your identity had changed when you came back to England, is that right?
Yeah, just like all of my original ideas were nullified and there was no ambition. I came back to psychology and people were asking me like, what is a thought? And I was like, that's just tripped me up completely. Or how do we have memories? And I was like, they're trying to, like, everyone's lying to me to start with. And if the teacher gave out like rough paper and things, I'd be more concerned at what was on the other side of the paper that she'd just torn off at random to give people. Like, I've got a frog on mine. He's got an elephant on the back of his. She's got numbers.
Okay.
What does it all mean? And my whole significance system was just like completely upside down.
So starting in hindsight, do you think you were starting to become a bit paranoid at that point?
Very much so, yeah. I would more often than not eat my lunch alone in my car.
Okay.
Someone walked over my car at some point with muddy footprints, and I was like, "This is what I deserve." Yeah, and I felt kind of wretched and put down. But then the more I smoked, the more suicidal I got. And I tried different methods, but yeah.
Tried different methods
of suicide.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I tried jumping off a bridge, like 40-foot drop, broke 2 bones in my foot and 2 in my back. I stabbed myself in the heart and twisted it to let the blood out on the 22nd of March. So I must have been in hospital for like two months. But yeah, something was definitely wrong, because there had been 3 suicide attempts. I tried overdosing in that time as well. My mum came round and she saw me hugging my knees, rocking and like humming to myself and really reluctant to speak, because everything I said came out wrong. All these extraneous noises were like background noises, would sort of, each of them would trigger a different voice saying wretched things about me, saying like persecuting, like try harder next time to kill yourself, that kind of thing. And it was overwhelming. It was, but I thought that weed was the answer still.
So there was no link in your mind between smoking and the paranoia, is that right?
No. I thought I was doing the right thing by getting stoned.
Right. And the attempts to kill yourself, were they in response to voices or a general sense that everything was so overwhelming you just needed this all to stop, or something else?
It was a strange one. It was an honour, a sacrifice. If I didn't kill myself, the alternative is far worse.
Okay.
The alternative was that my close family would be tortured and murdered.
And this is what you were hearing, the voices were telling you?
Yeah.
Okay.
The geographer came into it then as well, and he was orchestrating it all. But if I didn't kill myself, they were go through like torture, rape, and then killed. But if it came to 0 hour, which is where everything flipped and normal life turned upside down. If you've seen the original version, I love films, Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sharon Stone, he's not sure if his reality is true.
Okay.
But then I think he takes a suicide pill or something, and suddenly people burst in through the walls.
Right.
Like army people. And they can't take Arnold Schwarzenegger down, but this is what I thought would happen to me at 0 hour. This is a very, very specific time. But there were coordinated voices, though. That was something I was surprised at, because they'd each be propagating the same message. If the noise is coming from a ticking clock, or if it's coming from howling wind outside, they would all be different approaches to the same idea.
So various noises that you heard were rich with meaning, and that meaning was echoed by the voices as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And it sounds like there were some commands in there.
Yeah.
Okay, and some threats that if you didn't kill yourself, then those really close to you would be tortured, raped, killed themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I felt like a samurai.
Okay. I mean, I'm interested. How did it feel emotionally? How did it feel as well?
Very draining. My thoughts would be. I remember going to the convenience store for some milk, and I would say thank you, as anyone would. But to me, because there was a silence after it that could last for hours, that time I was cogitating on what I'd said, and I actually thought it said like, do they uncle you? Do they uncle you? Thank you. And it sort of became like, like Lil Uzi Vert. I don't know. He's this rapper in America who's got a fixation with Marilyn Manson.
Right.
And if you say Lil Uzi Vert, if you say Lil Uzi Vert, it sounds like Lucifer. It's that kind of thing.
Okay.
So I would say thank you for the milk, and then I said, do they uncle you? Are they like Zio? Is it like a mafia sort of? Did the mafia look after you? And I'm asking a question of that gravity when I've actually said thank you. So I was in knots. I didn't know what I was doing.
Okay.
No, yeah. I would say like, fair enough. It would come out as fear and love.
Right.
So I was really focusing on the minutiae that don't need to be focused on. Like throwaway comments would be like, they'd have more meaning than the actual conversation.
Okay. So not only is everything rich with meaning, but rich with persecutory meaning.
Totally.
That others are intending you harm.
Exactly.
And you're in quite a risky situation.
Yeah.
Okay. And was that a frightening situation?
Very much so.
Okay. That's really helpful. That gives a sense of kind of how things were going before you became unwell.
Yeah.
Heading off to Canada for a year out, smoking a lot of weed and really becoming very unwell.
Yeah.
And it sounds like when you came back to England, there was a kind of a sense of loss of that identity that you had in Canada.
Yeah.
With a lot of paranoia getting stronger and stronger as time went by, and then the voices showing up and kind of reiterating a lot of the paranoia as well. Okay. Yeah. To the point that actually you became quite suicidal at times.
Yeah.
Okay.
At one point I thought I had a real problem with glitter. Individual bit of glitter, if you actually scrutinise one.
Yes.
Back in those days, at least, they were like hexagons of different colours, which hexagon 6 was already got me worried. And there were like 5 different groups represented by the microtransmitters and microphones in these glitters. It was the Knights Templar, the Illuminati, the Metropolitan Police, Hell's Angels, and the Sicilian Mafia.
Okay.
And they're all represented in like their own type of glitter, watching me and listening to my thoughts even. So, yeah, I mean the nurses were reporting on me, and so were bits of glitter.
Okay.
So it was quite overwhelming, and the odds were against me. It was like me against like 7.5 billion people.
Is that what it felt like? You against everybody else?
Yeah, except for my close family, and that's why they were going to get tortured and killed because it was me. It's like an ultimate sort of, I can't say this about other lived experience people, but grandiose delusions. So, yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be as simple as saying, oh, I'm Jesus, because everything, I mean, that's like an apex of delusions. It would be like, I would be watching a film with my family, and I would leave the room to go to the bathroom or something, and I'd say, do you want us to pause it? And I'd be like, no, it's fine. I'll come back when I need to come back. Which is a very bizarre thing to say, and I'll probably be slipping to a relapse if that happened.
Okay.
But what I'd think inside, in my head, would be the people who produced in this film, and the millions and millions of dollars gone into making this, and the actors showing up, and the lighting, everything, had all boiled down to it being screened at this place, at this address, at this time, and we all know the victim, which would be me, is going to leave the room at this particular scene.
Okay.
Everything was like a pinpoint accuracy, and I thought at the time my family had to see this part of the film with me not there. Then I would rejoin and everything. I really felt really different, and the whole world conspiring against you. Every noise you hear, I mean, music was a nightmare. But
so you end up feeling like you're the focus of all this attention and hostility and persecution. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Over that time, most of the evenings were, if I wasn't out getting drunk so I could forget about things, I was worried about getting dragged out of my bed by my feet, like by the police. And when the police turn on you, you know, you're in trouble. And dragged around by police cars with people hurling stuff at me. This was 0 hour, the moment this happens.
Okay.
And then my life would never be pain-free again.
Okay.
I was really worried about that. The first medications I was put on, my mum did a really brave thing in like having me brought before a doctor.
Okay.
First thing they gave me was, because I stopped the THC in the hospital, I was by myself. I wasn't mingling with the patients, which was apparently frowned upon. But I was given Solpride, and that there was silence straight away in my head. I could think clearly.
Stop the voices, did it? Okay.
Amazing.
Okay.
They pinpointed that perfectly. But the thing was, I was still psychologically addicted to this cannabis. So I went, got discharged, went back on the weed again, and so now my brain's got THC and Solpride going on, and the voices have come back.
Okay.
So over the years, it's added and added and added. And this time, well, since 2010 I've been out, and it's been like, I'm on like 900 milligrams of lithium, 500 of quetiapine, 250 of clozapine, and they're two antipsychotics and a mood stabilizer, and omeprazole 20 milligrams for gastric reflux side effects. And the side effect, another one, is pirenzepine for excess elevation. My 2 kilometers swimming every morning is for the weight gain.
Okay.
But yeah, so there's lots of pills that's gone to making up a good medication for me.
Okay.
I mean, you've got to hand it to these doctors. There's lots of trial and error going on. But with street drugs thrown into the mix, how can they possibly get it right straight away?
Okay.
So, one thing that someone told, I would speak to I'd have like escorted leave to the garden, which is a great treat after a few weeks of being locked inside with people that you don't really know, and you've got strange things in common.
This is on the ward, is it?
Yeah.
Right.
With this one nurse, and I said, so have you like quite naively, have you like put anyone in an arm lock like this month? And he'll say, look, it's not about physical, it's about talking. The skill comes from like talking someone down rather than throwing them across the road. I know that the best way to get out of hospital is to do what the doctor says, not to like throw a chair at him. It's not going to get you anywhere. But I mean, I used to be quite cocky in my ward rounds. Once I was asked, like, so are you hearing any voices now? And I was like, no, just yours, doctor, just your voice.
And were you saying that because that was what was going on, or you knew that's what he might have needed to hear?
I think I might have been sort of just feeling defeatist, because I would do something wild and crazy, and it would take ages for me to get their trust back, and then they can discharge me. Because people expect, if they volunteered to go, that they can just as easily leave. But the thing is, if they've been like the psychiatric emergency assessment team, Pete, has assessed them as needing residential care. You can't get out of it.
Okay.
And that was so many times, men especially, you see them really flipping out. They can't believe it. They thought they could just get some, I don't know, medications to tide them over.
Okay. So can I ask you now what started to change and how things started to change?
I mean, the consistent love and attention of my family was just really amazing.
But it sounds like that was throughout.
Yeah.
When you were unwell and when you became well again.
There was a very awkward time where I had 2 keys to my apartment, and I demanded one back from my mum. So I had both keys because I'd totally lost faith in her. But I mean, in general, she was just really, really great. She sort of invited the GP into my life like early on.
Okay.
And that's a big decision for anyone to make about someone that they love, you know. So.
And were you able to speak with the GP openly about what was going on?
No,
okay.
I didn't say a word because I thought I would incriminate myself, or you know, I was suspicious of him. Obviously, he's like coming to my, and he knows more about my mind than me, you know.
Even though that interaction was difficult, it sounds like it was important, and you, in hindsight, are thankful to your mum for getting the GP involved. Yeah,
it was the best thing she could have done. Yeah, I'm happy to be alive these days, as
right.
you could probably imagine, because it was terror the whole time.
Okay. Yeah. And so when did things start to change?
It must have been about 2009 or 2010, because I would think, well, last night nothing happened, maybe not tonight, and then the next day, that's 2 nights in a row, and my sensibleness just came back, and it's not logical to get worried about something you can't control.
So did you make a conscious decision to stop smoking?
Well, my mum has always said that, bring her again, she always said that I was allergic to cannabis.
Okay.
She put it as that. And I was like, oh, what does she know? You know, she's a square. But yeah, she actually did know. Over time, I was tired of embarrassing her, to be like being the black sheep of the family. Like, oh, what's Adam done now? She was always glossing over things with her friends, and you know, yeah, because she's proud. She's a proud woman. Yeah, now I can make it up to her and things.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good. It's not just paranoia of something bad. It's like, and everything else you can imagine that's bad, all crowded, you know. So I used to think that even my movements when I'm alone, like in bed, were hyper important. So if I had a scratch on my left shoulder and I'm trying to get into sleep, I couldn't be bothered, or I'd be rebelling by not scratching it. If you're considering ignoring an itch, you have to be prepared for thinking it could be like a spider or something biting you in that place. But after a while, if you're lazy enough, it will go by itself. And for me to figure these things out, I've had a lot of time on my hands to worry.
Yeah, and it sounds like you did spend a lot of time worrying, going round and round in your head.
Yeah.
Okay, but after a while you stopped. You noticed that actually the police weren't coming in to attack you. Yeah. And then again the next night, and then again the next night.
Yeah.
And at the same time you were smoking less, is that right?
Yeah,
okay.
And gradually. I think I smoked like immediately less. I don't think I know some people who weaned themselves off of it, but no, it's like suddenly the guilt. It's like, why am I putting my family through this? Okay. So that's what finally saved me. Okay. And I'm so pleased now that I've got such an obvious trigger. Okay. I mean, if I don't get stoned, I don't get ill. If I keep taking my meds, I don't get ill. Okay. So it's quite a relief, really. And you feel quite in control of things these days? Yeah. Okay. So before we come to an end, can I just ask you again to bring to mind our students who will be meeting people who are
quite unwell, seeking to understand what's going on for them, wanting to think with them about how they can make some changes, perhaps.
Yeah.
Any advice or suggestions you have for them in terms of how they might approach that? I think you mentioned about the kind of readiness to do that work.
Yeah. Also, remember that you're like the face of authority.
Mm-hmm.
So people so I've seen people brought in by the police, and then the police have talked with ward nurses and things. So be kind and patient if you can. Just try and be calm most of the time.
Okay.
These people can get better.